Hello, everyone. Welcome to LexTalk World Talk Show presented by Clickaway Creators. Today, we have Ms. Krystle N with us. She is founder and CEO of CIMI Ventures P.C, Washington, USA, where she acts as legal counsel and business advisor to public and private clients, primarily in the pharmaceutical, biotech, and high-tech industries. Thank you so much for joining us, Krystle. We are pleased to have you with us today.
Thank you, Ben. I'm very, very pleased to be here.
And we are very glad to have you on the show today. Let's quickly ask you the first thing first. Please help us, tell us more about your journey so far as a legal professional.
Absolutely. So I started at a firm in New York called Troutman Sanders. It's an international law firm, and it's now Troutman Pepper. And I was starting in mergers and acquisitions and general corporate law. I was there for a few years and transitioned to the firm's Orange County office. I'm from the West Coast originally, so I came back to the West Coast. I continued the corporate deal work, and I added in some deal work for renewable energies. I was there for another few years and decided to go out on my own, and I started CIMI Ventures about 7 years ago. It is a growing and evolving and fast-paced, busy business. A huge portion of my client base now is companies who need help triaging their legal needs. So that is companies in periods of transition, and that can be growth or it can be redundancy. But in any event, they need somebody to jump in really quick and help them triage, what's going on in their company. So it's great. I've been really, really lucky to have fantastic clients with very big goals, and I get to help contribute to their success in meeting those goals.
Oh, amazing. So a quick journey so far, and these 7 years have been, as an entrepreneur or probably starting off on your own, must have been very fascinating. And as you said, it's a fast-paced, very busy business. So I think it's keeping you very much busy all the way through long. Moving ahead to the next question here, Krystle, tell us about the best advice you received when you started your legal career, and what are your key takeaways from there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, the things that will stick with you in a conversation, because I'm willing to bet the person that offered me this advice doesn't even know how meaningful it was to me or the impact that it's had to me over the years. But I was a first-year associate, and you've graduated law school and you're now in this big corporate world and in this large international law firm. And you really don't know how to do the job yet. You know what you've learned in school, but you don't know how to do the job. And the advice that he offered me was not to think of myself as a first-year associate in this law firm, but instead to think of myself as my own company and to determine how my actions would affect my company brand as I work throughout this law firm. And it's really interesting concept when you think about it, because it shifts the focus, right? It shifts the focus from you being in kind of this vulnerable situation that you may or may not know how to navigate, but certainly that you're not an expert in. And it empowers you to control what you can. And there's a lot you can control if it's your own business. You can control how much effort you put in, when you show up, how you problem solve, how you communicate with others. And so by shifting this perspective, he offered this experience for me to be empowered, as I go through this first year legal practice. And I've utilized that same advice throughout my career, because I am constantly put in unfamiliar and new situations. It is the nature of what I do, that I'm working with clients who are throwing me in new situations, and everything's very custom. And so whenever you're in that situation, you simply look for the things that you can control, and then you start from there. And I find that it allows for a really nice progression, where there's a little bit of a rhythm to it, but always a stability that you can come back to. So I would absolutely say that's great advice, and I would offer it to somebody else.
Amazing. I think you just made me remind of my first reporting manager 14 years back. And I remember, one quick advice that he also gave me. I don't want to say it here, but I think, those advices that just comes like in a quick snap, they don't really even realize what they have said and how seriously we have taken that, and how long we're going to follow that. So I mean, that's definitely a very inspiring story. And this is an advice for all of our viewers as well. If you are a young legal professional, or still in the law schools. Probably law is a business, or law is an industry where you have to really own that problem. Whatever situation you're thrown into, you really have to own that and think from that, probably, as your own company, or from that entrepreneurial mindset. So that's very critical, and that's very important. What an advice. Thank you so much for the mentor here. And moving ahead to the next question. You have been in the corporate law. So tell us about, how do you look at corporate law in 2021, and how it's going to change 5 years down the line? What do you think about it?
Sure. When you're looking at corporate law, I think you have to look at it from two perspectives. The first perspective is the fundamental element of law, right? You're talking case law, you're talking statutes, you're talking an evolving nature of how the law impacts your client. The other element of corporate law, which I think is really pertinent as a business owner, is the business of that legal practice. And so by that, I mean the monetization of the legal practice. And I think the former, right, when we're talking about the fundamental elements of law, that will continue to evolve at the pace at which it always has. It's faster now than, say, probably it was 40, 50 years ago, but you do see incremental change, and it's often based on what's happening in society and, business needs and client needs, and just general thoughts on how in the corporate world companies should behave and what business looks like. The fascinating thing is how rapidly the other side is evolving. The business of law, right, that monetization element is thriving, and it is driven by a change, a request for change from attorneys, right? They want to practice law differently. They want to have a different type of relationship with their client. Not everybody needs to be in a traditional white shoe law firm that was a sign of the heyday. And clients want something different. They want attorneys who are accessible. And we live in this very on-demand sort of world. So they don't want it later. They need it right now. And they want to check your reviews online. And the interaction and accountability is just different. And they're not all institutional clients. We have a very, very entrepreneurial world that we live in, thankfully, right? That's a great thing. And technology today has made the business of law accessible to everybody. And it's great because options that we had, in a legal practice or as attorneys or clients. And even as my attorney, I hire other attorneys. I hire other attorneys for my own business all of the time, right? We all need experts. And it has allowed that to evolve really, really rapidly. We have options to us today that we did not have 15 years ago. And I think in the next 15 years, I can't even imagine where we'll be, because that's an exponential evolvement, So I think it's a mix to your original question, but I definitely think you see some areas of that corporate law element, evolving so much faster than perhaps just the fundamental roots of the legal analysis.
Absolutely. And I think one quick change that not just the corporate law, but the entire legal industry is trying to inculcate is that, those days are gone when the lawyers used to be in their law offices all the time. Now as a lawyer, you have to have a business backpack, a business mindset. You have to understand your client, understand how the revenue cycle works, and almost all the processes to be able to give them the right and the best advice. So I think absolutely true on that part. And we definitely see corporate law also growing rapidly in the next 5 years or probably 10 years. I will move on to the next question with that. And this is related to COVID. So, we are all in that problem right now. So let's talk about that a little bit. So Krystle, you serve as a corporate legal counsel to clients in a variety of sectors. How did COVID-related event of the last year impact your clients' growth comparatively across the various sectors?
Right. Yeah. It's a really timely question. Not only are we living it, but I think we're all living it longer than we thought we would. So, when this started last March, and I'm in Seattle, so where I am was really a hot zone at the beginning of the pandemic. And the shift that has happened, very specific to Seattle businesses, and even my clients who are outside of Washington, because I have a lot of clients in New York and California as well, has really shown a divide between the haves and the have-nots, if you will. So what I'm finding is that you have some clients who really, really struggled this year to either protect or maintain their revenue, their annual revenue in some form or fashion. And they're running up against a lot of obstacles, which makes that really difficult. So they are running, against production delays and shipment delays, and it really makes their day-to-day difficult. On the flip side, I have a lot of clients who have seen this as just an absolute tremendous growth year. And the reason for that is because they weren't over leveraged. They had pretty good cash flow. They paused right around that May to July timeframe, and then they just went full throttle. And they capitalized on opportunities that they wouldn't have possibly had in the next 5 to 10 years, except the opportunity was so ripe right now to take it that they capitalized on it. And so what I think you've really ended up, and I'm a big fan of small business, in my personal life, I absolutely support it. A lot of my clients, they're all growth clients. And so they tend to be more institutional, larger clients. And they really saw an opportunity to take a mover's advantage this year. And so they've gained a lot of market share as a result of it. And I think that those that I have seen do well were those that saw this as an opportunity year, saw it as a positive year, were nimble and quick to react with change, were flexible. And those that were in a structure that allowed them to do that are those that thrived.
Well, absolutely. I think more we have seen this COVID pandemic, and more that we have kind of handled the situation, we've kind of learned different ways to probably minimize the impact and probably create opportunities out of that. And as you said, a lot of your clients were able to really thrive that time and really get some great opportunities out of that. So that's absolutely true. And it also depends upon the industry that you're in. For example, the hospitality industry, probably travel and tourism, aviation, probably these are those industries that has seen the biggest impact. But on the flip side, probably insurance is one of the sectors that has really thrived and have really made a lot of money, and probably the revenue cycles have gone maybe what they were not really expecting.
That often tends to be the case.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that great insight with us and telling us about your different clients and how they really felt the heat of COVID-19. Let's move on to the next one. In your experience, Krystle, how can an outside counsel most directly impact the serve in-house teams in a meaningful way, the most meaningful way?
Absolutely. So in my role, I serve as outside counsel who works really, really closely with in-house teams. And that's both on the legal side and the business partners as well. And I think attorneys by their nature are just problem solvers. People call their attorneys when they have something that needs to be solved, right? And it could be positive, it could be a growth thing, it could be an issue that they now need you to step in on. But the reality is, we're problem solvers. And so I think there are 3 skills that speak to doing that particularly well when you're in a position as outside counsel to really be interacting with an in-house team. And I think the first one is issue spotting. And in the legal world, when we say issue spotting, we always are talking about legal issues first. I think the key to being a great partner as outside counsel is issue spotting practical everyday business needs as you're working on their legal needs. So what do I mean by that? If you are drafting an agreement for them or you are drafting a policy for them, what's the administrative burden that is placed on them in executing that policy every day or in performing their obligations under that agreement? And is there a way to minimize or shift that burden while getting them to the exact same legal effect? And I think in a lot of cases, you'll find that there is. And so I think that's the first skill, right? Issue spotting in a way that really helps them and makes their everyday easier. That allows you to be a great partner to them. The second one is efficiency. These are fast moving, busy teams. And what I find, regardless of clients who are large institutional clients or smaller clients trying to build on an idea, is that everybody is running lean. It is maybe the most consistent comment I receive across any client when I speak to them and say, well, we're a really lean team. Yes, I do know everybody runs lean. And I think the idea there is, I recognize that you're running lean, so I have to build an efficient process on my end. And if we build that efficient process up front and we communicate it and we're all on the same page, it allows us to hit the ground running. And the key there is, when I step into a situation, it's obviously a little bit more chaotic than normal, right? A product is about to come to market, so you're about to hit product launch. You have been successful in that, and now you're in a growth supply, or something has happened that you didn't expect, and now you're pulling back on your headcount. And now you need people to step in and try to figure out what's been done, what hasn't been done, and pick up those pieces. So efficiency is really key, which leads me to my last one, which is actually flexibility. And for the exact reasons I just named, you cannot be a good partner, particularly as outside counsel, stepping into these roles without flexibility. So you can, issue spot the legal issue, explain it, come to a creative solution. Sometimes it's not even always the one that you would first think about, but by talking to the business partners, by talking to the individuals in the in-house team, you can really come to a collective agreement that will allow them to excel in what it is they're trying to achieve. And our role as outside counsel is to assist in that and make sure they're doing it in a compliant and legal way. So that's what I would leave you with, is I think those three skills allow for a really, really positive relationship. And I've used them to build long-term lasting relationships with all of my clients.
Wow, three amazing advisors for, I think, all those outside counsel who, very closely work with the in-house teams. But at the same time, let me also point out here, Krystle, I can really feel that passion, that you're very much passionate about your work, because when you talk about that, I can really see that on your face, in your eyes. And I think this is also one important aspect for your business. If you are an outside counsel and works for in-house teams, you really have to make them feel that you are a value addition and you will add that value. So this is also a great learning from you, Krystle, here on this quick show. I'll move
Thank
on
you
to
very
the
much.
next
I
question.
really do love what I do.
Yeah, exactly. And I can see that. And I just wanted to point it out. All right, so let's move on to the next question of the session. And here we would like to talk about, so there's a constant discussion as to whether a work-life balance can be achieved in the legal profession. Do you think it is possible? And do you have any tips to achieve this?
It's interesting because we live in a world now that by its nature tries to refocus our attention a million different ways in a million different moments throughout a single day, right? And so from a business perspective, you have your emails, your texts, your calls, and it's not one email account, it's 10 email accounts. And then you have your professional platforms, your LinkedIn, and everybody's trying to get in contact with you through a different touch point. On top of that, we're all human, and we have personal goals and professional goals and family commitments and community commitments. And so I think it's very, very easy for people to feel as though they must be lacking balance because they're being pulled in so many different directions. And I think where I might shift that perspective a little bit is to say, maybe it's not balance you're seeking, but maybe it's fulfillment, right? Perhaps instead of striving for balance, which if it was a yes or no question, I would probably say no. It's not a perfect world. If somebody has achieved it, it's not been me. I'll be honest. But I do think that you can strive for fulfillment. And I have done three things I think in my practice that allow that to be the case for me. And I will admit, I am probably by any definition a workaholic. And about 5 years ago, I realized that, that's where the majority of every day, in my life was going, was really towards work. I think most people could say that, particularly in the year of COVID. I think people have really found that that's been amplified. And there are three things that I think people can do to shift that, and that I have used and continue to use and found them to be successful. So the first one is I calendar everything. I used to have a running to-do list, and I don't know if you can relate, but it was a never-ending to-do list. I would cross things off, other things would populate. I was doing it nights and weekends, and I found I just never had any time. I now calendar all of those tasks, and I treat them like I would anything else on my calendar. So if they're on the calendar, they get accomplished. Very easy, very clean. And I'm not struggling with this idea that I've never accomplished anything on this growing to-do list. The second one that I've really been proactive in is making time for educational pursuits and community, interests that are important to me. So I I completed a fellowship with the World Affairs Council, and I am on the board of the Seattle Animal Shelter Foundation. And doing things like that are an absolute game changer. They still take time and effort and energy, but I feel that I am even more rejuvenated in my day job when I'm tackling those things outside of the office. It's just a fulfillment issue. And I think the last one that I would recommend, and I've been doing this for over 15 years, is a 1, 5, and 10-year goal list. And I would say I reference that goal list and take a look at it at least once a year. It is an excellent resource if you're trying to figure out whether or not to accept an opportunity, because you can reference your goal list and figure out if that opportunity is the right one to move you in the direction that you really want to be. And so, to answer your question, I don't know if we can be balanced. We can be fulfilled, and I think we do it by using our time and being very intentional with how we use it.
Absolutely true. And I think for our viewers as well, if you have any questions on that, because Krystle seems very, a great professional who has been able to kind of create a balance. And as she said, it's not a perfect world. You can't really create that balance always, but you can definitely have a fulfillment. And if in case you have any questions that you want to ask Krystle, please drop them in the comments box below, and we will try to have Krystle sharing her comments on that. Thank you so much for sharing those great insights, Krystle. And I think those running to-do lists, there was a saying that I just got on that you're always in a hurry, but rarely on time if you're running on those to-do lists. So I think that's a very old saying on those to-do lists, and calendar, putting up everything on a calendar and making sure that you have a timeline attached to everything is definitely a key. So thank you so much again for sharing those great insights with us, not just this question, but all of those questions, and so much of learning out of this session. I'm sure our viewers would love the session. They would have a lot of points to jot down and probably start practicing. Thank you so much once again, Krystle, for sharing those great insights with us. It was a lovely talking to you, and we look forward to have you on the show again in the future to discuss some other trending legal topics in the legal industry. And we look forward to seeing you at our conference as well in the United States. So thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure speaking to you. And for our viewers, if you like this chat, please like and share this video. Also subscribe to our Clickaway Creators YouTube channel to have more coming from the industry leaders. What would you like to say at the last, Krystle?
I would like to thank you for your time, Ben. This has been really lovely, and I appreciate our growing relationship. And I've found a lot of value in watching these discussions with other attorneys. So I hope somebody pulls some value from this as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This has been for LexTalk World.